Speaking of nice places, let's go into the Olympics because the Olympics happen every 4 years. This time it's every three. The pandemic put a lot of things in a different place. The last time we had these games was 2021. And full disclosure, I am somebody who's obsessed with the Olympics. The 2 weeks or whatever it is that it's on is just appointment television for me. I can't get enough of it. And I think it's because it is so unique. And this time around, it's in Paris, one of the most, if not the most famous city in the entire world. So lots of things are going into these Olympics. But we've talked about this somewhat briefly offline. But how do you feel about the Olympics?
I love the Olympics. I think the fact that it is once every 4 years, but it encompasses so many different events. So you could easily find something that suits your taste. And also it's a great opportunity to expose yourself to maybe different or more unique sports. And I think it's super interesting some of the things that have become Olympic events over the years. And so I always find it interesting when they add events, remove events, and stuff like that to try to keep things, I guess, fresh and relevant to some degree. And although, except for what about 8 years ago, they tried to they threatened to remove wrestling, which luckily the wrestling community got behind it, and that did not happen. But it's like, how can you remove like other than running, like wrestling's like the original Olympic sport. Like, how could you get rid of wrestling? So, no, I look forward to the Summer Olympics, all the Olympics, but Summer Olympics, I feel like, um, or there's more events that are kind of hotly contested that the Americans, have sort of a rival of sorts in a lot of different events, which I think brings a little bit more interest.
So I heard this take and I want to know how you feel about it. But somebody said that the Olympics are sports for people who don't like sports.
I could see that maybe, because it's really, yeah, you have basketball, you have baseball. Um, but a lot of the other sports are more kind of niche sports. And the Olympics, I feel like more so than about the sport, it's the sports themselves are a lot of human interest stories. And so, you're going to see celebrities born. Stars will be born over the next 2 weeks during the Olympics because of, different things that happen and take place. And I think that, Americans, especially, we love a good human interest story. We love an underdog story, and we will get that by the truckload, I'm sure, over the next couple weeks.
Yes, but the Olympics are, to me, unique in the fact that they are so different from professional sports because, for the most part, they are mostly amateur sports. And if you think about the people who participate in these events, many of them are young, right? If you think about the most hotly contested ones, swimming, track, you don't see 38, 39-year-old guys in there. Now, when you go to like archery or things like that, you might see canoeing, some of those like water sports you may see older guys or older women do that kind of stuff. But for the most part, it's younger people in their prime. And it's a different factor because you're competing for your country. And one of the things I think that has been appealing for the most part, now, of course, there have been events over the course of the Olympics that have bled into the political, but for the most part, everything kind of stops for the Olympics when you go there. And it's just about the friendly rivalry that exists between these countries in the sports format, which is how it came about in the first place. And there is something nice to, I guess, behold there where you think in today's tumultuous world all over the place for these 2 weeks, these men and women are going to go there, compete in their sport that they've been training for 4 years for, and that's all that's going to be. I think that's the best part. And especially when you think about competing for your own country, having your own colors on, there has to be no better feeling in the world.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so, man. It's got to be really special, and the fact to be crowned the best in the world at what you do is got to be an incredible feeling, and to do it for your country, and to know just to have even sort of an inkling of the amount of time that these people put into this, the amount of time they invest in training and practice, and really, I mean, probably honestly their entire lives up to this point. And what is so, and you kind of alluded to it, it's like once it's over, it's just over. There's no, there's no professional outlet for a lot of these things. So it's like, what now? And unless you do happen to be kind of one of those media darlings that gets some endorsement deals or something, you're kind of going to get chewed up and spit out into the real world. And I think I saw a clip off of a podcast where Sean Johnson, the women's gymnastics Olympian, gold medalist. She was talking about how like crazy it was when she quit competing, like to like assimilate back to like normal life, like even things as simple as like eating in her diet, because she ate such a strict diet. She's like, wait, like I can eat like anything. Like, I mean, it was almost overwhelming to her that she didn't have this regimented lifestyle and had the freedom to kind of do whatever she wanted.
There are the sports in the Olympics that the degree of difficulty is so high and the margin for error is so small. Gymnastics, I think, is probably in the pantheon of sports that meets that criteria because you think about, excuse me, how perfect that they have to be when they do this. And you're talking about, again, 4 years in a microsecond where it could all crash down. Now, running and swimming, I mean, there's a lot of events that take place over the course of time, but you can have a bad race and still be one of the best in the world, right? You don't have to be at your A plus game every single time you get in the pool. But when you're a gymnastics or you're a gymnast, you have to be. And we saw that 3 years ago with Simone Biles, where when you're not right, it's dangerous. Like it can't, even for the best person to ever do it. And so the time that people put into this, and the other thing I think that is not taken into account, and we've talked about this in a negative way, where parents who like to live vicariously through their children, I would assume that there's a combination of parents who do that, but also there's a combination of parents who see that their child has an affinity for this sport, right? Because think about with our kids, we try to stick them in some kind of sport, figure out what they like and don't like, and gymnastics at like the newborn age almost is like pretty common, where they learn how to fall, they learn how to use their bodies, and that's where it happens, right? The spark for these little things. You send them off to swim lessons. You know, Riley right now is in softball. We don't know. And it's funny how those things percolate and happen. And I love the interest pieces for the parents because it's a sacrifice for them too, right? Because they're the ones that got to take them to all the practices and pay all the money to send them to all these places. This is not cheap. It's not cheap to train for the Olympics whatsoever.
No, not at all. And that's why it's very commendable because you know, likely, you know, this has cost you and your family thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, tens of thousands, possibly hundreds of thousands of dollars over your lifetime, and all for, I don't want to say just a gold medal or just an opportunity to compete for a gold medal or just an opportunity to compete for your country, but and because those things are very meaningful. But I mean, as far as like a tangible benefit at the end, there isn't one, right? And so it does come down to like, what does it mean to you personally? And I'm happy, I'm glad, I'm very proud that there are people out there who this means something to be able to compete for the United States. That's awesome, man, and I'm really excited about it.
Do you ever
Can't you
put
tell by the
yourself?
tone of my voice? I'm really
Well, yes.
excited about it.
But do you ever put yourself in the position like when I watch the Olympics now, the last time the Olympics were on, I had a child. The time before that, I did not. But the last time, whenever they show the parents, I put myself in that position and think, what would I do? Like, what would it feel like to have my child make the Olympics? Doesn't matter if they win or not. Just to make an Olympic team, to be in that moment one of the best in the world to do what it is that they do. And I just think about what that must feel like because as parents, you know, there's a lot of frustrating moments and we get caught up in the minutia of taking care of our kids, but in the end, their successes give us joy and satisfaction, or at least that's how it should work, right? And so I don't know. This time around, I'll probably think about it more because our kids are getting older. Every time this happens, 4 years goes by. And it's hard not to think about it. It's hard not to put yourself in a position of, man, how would that feel? Besides nerve wracking.
Oh, I'd be a wreck, man. Like, I know how I felt during this softball season because, you know, Riley played coach pitch and I pitched probably 75% of the season. The last 3 quarters of the season, I pitched. And, you know, I know how it felt when, like, she was up and maybe there's like a runner on third and it was like sort of a critical moment in the game. And I'm like, one, the pressure's on me to throw her a hittable pitch, but two, like for her to, you know, hoping that she has success and gets a hit or whatever else, like just that anxiety and those nerves for an 8U coach pitch softball game. Like I would be outside of my mind if she was competing in the Olympics. It would be I honestly thinking about it, like it sounds miserable because I know how I would feel. I would be just I'd be a mess.
So what I'm hearing is that she should not have you throw pitches for the home run derby.
No, that probably wouldn't go well. No.
She'd be like, "Come on, can we get somebody else in here?"
There was a game, when we had our little town ball tournament. I don't know if I told you about this. So we played 3 games in one day. I pitched all 3 games. So like 15 innings of pitching.
Man, your arm
And
must have been
the
done.
so in game 2, I like in the middle of game 2, like I start struggling, man. It was almost like I thought I was like getting the yips. Like I was like nearly rolling the ball in at times, like airmailing it to the back. I'm like, I cannot throw the ball down the middle. Like, I mean, I hit a rough patch, and which is a terrible feeling because the poor girls that are at the plate, like, they're helpless. And I worked through it, okay? I battled through it, and I overcame adversity, and I went on to be fine, but the guy that I coached with, he was coaching first base, and this game, first base happened to be by the other team's dugout, and one of the coaches for the other team, I guess, was like, "Hey, do you have another pitcher?" He's like, "Do you have a backup?" Okay, he's like, "Well, yeah, it's me." He's like, "But he'll be all right." Like, but yeah, he was
Oh,
the other team's coach was even worried about me, I guess, but
that'd be awesome
like I
if they
said,
were like bringing the righty. They're
yeah,
doing
they
the
come
arm
out
thing. They're
there.
just like, yeah, just kind of. We need to. I don't know what I would do. That would.
I I wanted to yank myself, man, like, um,
Keep it clean,
but
man.
yeah,
Come
I
on, come
did not
on.
mean that.
Yeah,
I
because
wanted to
our
remove myself from the responsibility of pitching.
much better. So we talked about how there's so many different sports. What are some of your favorite sports to watch?
Well, of course, wrestling, right? I follow wrestling. This is the pinnacle of wrestling. Being an Iowa fan, I always had a lot of Olympic medalists. And this year, then I've talked on this show about Spencer Lee before. He's a 3-time national champion at Iowa, and he is the United States representative at 57 kilograms. And so, really excited. I mean, he's going to have a shot at medaling or potentially winning a gold medal, which will be tons of fun. The U.S. in wrestling is pretty solid. It doesn't sound like the Russians will be competing, which is, I mean, it's unfortunate because it's one of those things where like Russia is probably historically traditionally known as the power in wrestling. But the U.S. has been right there with them here over the last decade or so. So it's unfortunate that they won't be there because it's one of those deals where there will always be like, unfortunately, some sort of an asterisk next to it if like somebody does win. And there shouldn't be because you know what? At the end of the day, like 20 years from now, no one's gonna be like, well, so and so gold medalist, but Russia wasn't there. I mean, and so I don't think history will reflect back on it just fine. But in the moment, I think there might be some people that want to maybe make less of it because of the Russians not being there. But other than that, I really enjoy. I like swimming. Um, and I think it's because one, it's very easy to understand, right? It's very easy to tell who wins and loses. You don't have to like understand any special rules. It's quick. It's like fast-paced action, which is good. And the US is good at it. And so, you kind of get to see some like American dominance, which is fun to see. And then diving is pretty crazy to me too. I think that's really interesting because it's like terrifying to me. And the fact, I mean, like, sure, anybody can fall from 30 feet in the air, but to like do it as gracefully and as athletically as they do is incredibly impressive.
What about
There are a couple
synchronized diving? Synchronized
that's
diving is
that's got to
nuts.
be tough, man. Yeah, because you're talking about, I mean, no two human beings are the same. You know what I mean?
No.
And like, it's like I may be able to do this very easily, and we have to do this as part of our, because I'm sure there are certain criteria that need to be met. It's like I can do this very easily, but maybe you can't. And so this is a real challenge for you to do this specific part of this dive or whatever, and like to have to be reliant on another person. And I imagine you spend a lot of time with that person. But it is very impressive. That and there's a couple others I have. Sand volleyball is kind of fun to watch. Um, Men's and women's. I'm not here being like, oh, just like watching the chicks in the bikinis playing volleyball. I'm not saying that. Doesn't hurt, but the water polo is always kind of
That's
I love
hard.
water polo. Yeah, that's why I'm like that's got to be difficult. You're just swimming nonstop, and like it'd be
Treading
like,
water.
yeah, treading water, and you're being physical. There's OG. I just saw he just popped his comment there. Water polo, yeah. and you're sitting there. It's kind of physical, for being in the water.
I mean,
So
kinda. It is physical.
yeah,
Like they're grabbing you, and like that's the thing. One of the sports that nobody takes seriously but is ridiculously hard is synchronized swimming. It's the
yeah,
same kind of thing, and actually my sister in law was talking about it. She was a former gymnast, and she hates how dolled up they get and how ridiculous they are, the way they have to walk, the way they have to look, because what they're doing is so difficult. Doing anything in the water that's already hard to do on land is, in my mind, like it, but it's just so hard to take it seriously because of how it looks and how it's
sure,
presented, right? But the water polo thing always gets me. First of all those guys are super ripped, right? Like super ripped.
yeah,
And it's just like 2% body fat. And it's like if you took rugby and put it in a pool, basically, just without
yeah.
like the tackling. But it's not, I mean, it's a very, and I think the pool is like 13 feet deep. So they're in like the dive pool. There is no way they're touching, they're treading water, they're moving back and forth. And they score what, like 12 goals a game or something? Like it's crazy.
It is crazy, man. It's really intense and fun to watch. I mentioned sand volleyball. I don't really care to watch most of the, like, the basketball, baseball. I think baseball still in it.
I don't think
Um,
baseball is anymore, but
might
those
have
are the
removed it.
sports we can watch all the time. So like it's
Right.
not as fun. No, gold medal game, sure, might watch that,
Like, I don't
but
get into like archery. That doesn't like
that's tough
intrigue
to get
me.
into. That's
Yeah.
really tough to get into. Now, I think the last cycle they added karate and sparring. That was interesting, right?
Yeah.
Because they also had the artistic part of it
Ooh,
too. There's like a, but the yeah, I think are they doing? Is it
fencing.
rodeo? Fence.
Fencing.
Oh, fencing is
Love
so hard.
fencing.
Yes.
Yeah, it popped into my head. Notre Dame. Notre Dame is known for producing Olympic fencers. I think one of the women who won a gold medal last go around was a recent graduate of Notre Dame. But um, the there's one more thing. The track,
Of
the
course.
short events though. I don't want to. I'm not too
Ah,
interested in watching the 6,400 meter or whatever. I want to see like the 100 meters, the 100-meter hurdles, the 4x4, the 4x1, the 4x2. Like I want to see that stuff that's fast and explosive. Um, and the other ones can be fun to watch, but they're not as I don't know. They just don't intrigue me as much as the fast ones,
for me, the
short ones.
Olympics have changed a little bit. But if there's a sport that is ridiculous to watch, badminton is insane. Like and
Oh yeah,
also
and how
table
like
tennis.
hardcore.
Table
Like the
tennis.
Asian countries are so
Oh
good at
God.
badminton, man. They're ridiculous. And like if you've ever gone to a gym, and I'm not stereotyping, but like you ever go to a gym where like they have badminton nets, like you could go to a gym anywhere in the country, and there will be people that are their nationality is Asian. Okay, that are playing badminton in any gym across America. And they're ridiculous at it.
Well, when we play it, right? I'm sure you played it as a kid. You have the net out in the
Yeah.
yard, and it's like you can get three volleys maybe, and they are just back and forth, back and forth. But the table tennis always gets me because they start out this, and then when you get those long volleys where they're like 10, they're so far away from each other, and the coordination that it takes to do that. And the Americans generally aren't super good at those types of sports, just for some reason. But they're fascinating to watch because they're leisure sports. There's something that you would see at like a bar, or like if you think about it, and it's
Right.
like these people are doing it at such a high level. It's not even at ringer status anymore. It's just insanity.
It is. It's incredible, and the bicycle racing, like the on the track with it's like the wooden track that's like banked
The
or
velodrome or
whatever,
whatever it's
whatever it's
called.
called. Like that's super fascinating to me because I'm like I would. There's no. I mean, it's one of those things as a kid. You're like, that looks so fun, but like I wouldn't be able to pedal hard enough
It's like
to
speed
not fall on
skating.
my face. Speed skating, yeah, that's winter, but that's a fun one to watch too.
So you talked about track and field. I mean, track and field swimming probably get the most casual viewers because, as you said, it's obvious, right? It's obvious who wins, who loses. It's something that everybody can do, I think. And I don't mean at that level, but like in some form or fashion, we've all ran. In some form or fashion, most of us have swam. So we can understand how to do that. But it's all about the level at which that they do it. And I understand what you're talking about with the shorter ones, right? That they are more appealing because it's like it's, I don't know, instant gratification, so to speak, where
Yes.
and the burst speed that it takes to run the 100 meters and to be as fast as Usain Bolt was, as consistently as he was, we can respect what it takes to do that. Now, a good portion of that is genetics, and you and I were not built with those genetics.
Well, and to see someone that's that much faster than the fastest people in the world, like it's just like nuts. And I think it was I feel like I feel like it was Robin Williams. It was either Robin Williams or Bill Murray. I don't know why those two are popping in my head. That had a bit one time where they said that that they should put an average ordinary person in every Olympic event just for reference for how good. So like you should be in the you should be swimming in the
Oh,
Olympics just so we can see how impressive um, the Olympians are. Because when you
what?
do see the best against the best, it doesn't necessarily in some sports it doesn't necessarily look that impressive
Well, you
because
know
you're
what's
like, hell, they're
funny?
just swimming.
I was talking with my wife about that because when we were, she had to take James to another pool because they were cleaning the one that he normally goes to. And there was this old woman in there, like she's probably in her 70s. And Chrissy said she's watching her and she's like, she's going really slow. She looks really awkward. She gets out, she's like totally ripped, right? Like totally, totally ripped. And when I watch people at the pool now, I can't tell how fast that they're going until I'm in the water and I start. So sometimes if I start a length at the same time that they do, I'll get an idea about how fast that they are. Most of them are faster than I am. And then it's like, you can't tell, right? Like even when you're watching on TV, like you know objectively that 17 seconds is fast or winning by zero point 0.1 of a second is ridiculous. But when you watch it, like if we were there, I'm not sure how exciting it would be because I don't know how fast that they would look like they're going, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, exactly, and it's something. I mean, I think it's true in all sports, even uh, football, basketball. Because like you see him out there, and you're like you see a guy in the NFL miss a block, and you're like, oh, that guy's a bum, whatever. Well, he's also trying to block one of the a premier athlete. You know what I mean? That's like trained his whole life to do this. So it's not like you got by the guy. Um, so yeah, it's sometimes hard to keep it in perspective how impressive these folks really are.
So this comment here talking about distance running being a different animal, that actually is perfect to what I wanted to say earlier when you talked about the short sports. And I love the distance stuff. Now I have a different perspective because I did distance running for years. And so watching the marathon for me is fascinating because while it takes a long time, the world record is like 2 hours. That's objectively a long time to watch something. There are so many things that happen that I can recognize within the race itself and know this is going to come back at the end or something like that. It's not just about who kicks at the end and gets there. There's so many things that happen, and it's exactly right. Distance running is so different. It's a mental game, right? Like our body can do they can do things in short bursts and go fast, right? But if you asked Usain Bolt to run a marathon, I mean, he probably does distance running because believe it or not, you have to run longer distances to train for the 100, right? Because there's so many different muscles involved, but it's not easy. And it's not easy at that pace. And like even the long distance swimming is ridiculous. And I'll have a stat of the week about that later on. But think about 1,500 meters, for instance. That's almost a mile. So you're swimming a mile in the world record's like 15 minutes, which for perspective, I did that in like 45 minutes. That was my best time. So the world record holder could break the world record twice, shower, and still be out by the time I finished.
And that's exactly what we're talking about, though. How good these people are, and I think you made a good point about how the mental side of these distance sports, whether it's swimming, running, I'm sure even the distance cycling, these events that take place over an extended period of time, because like yes, like you have to have some mental toughness to go through the training, the prolonged training for any event. But as far as like the mental toughness to get through the event itself, like any like what like the 100 meter, what Usain Bolt run the 100 meter in?
That was
Was
like
it
9.7 or
9 seconds or
something
something?
like
Like
that. Yeah.
anybody could do almost anything for 9 seconds, right? Like there's not like a mental block you have to overcome to run as fast as you can for 9 seconds. Now to train to run to do the training necessary to be able to run 100 meters in 9 seconds, different story. Like it takes a lot of mental toughness to do that. But as far as like performing in the moment, you're not having that mental battle that takes place over the course of 26.2 miles, right? And so that's a great point, and that's something that, and again, like you're going through all that stuff in training, but then of course you're going to endure that on the day of the event as well.
And for me, it brings up memories because I did 7 marathons total, which is kind of crazy. If you
That
think
is
about it,
crazy.
it's a lot. I did a lot of running in my peak days when I was in my late 20s and all the way through about my early 30s. It was like a 5-year period. And I can tell you stories about the first one where my body gave out halfway through and you got halfway to go. Like you're not going to give up. Or ones where it's like 20 miles in, you feel great and everything shuts down and you do what you've got to do to survive. And that's not even at an elite level. That's at the Joe Schmo level where you're just trying to get through, make this accomplishment happen. But you talked about the training. I mean, I would start training for a marathon 3 months out. It would be that long. And we're talking, I was running, gosh, like 70 to 100 miles a week just to be fast, right? To be fast for 26 miles. And I can recognize what it takes. And having not done it at that level, I can only imagine what it takes to do it at that level. So I like those sports because of I have a personal connection to them. And maybe now you will have a person, like I'm going to watch wrestling now.
Yeah, no, and it'll be fun too. No, I'm looking forward to wrestling, and no, you're right. I mean, the training and stuff is incredible, and Dad highlighted a few events here that are also really interesting, like triple jump, pole vault, high jump. Totally agree. I mean, those folks are like you want to see like some freak athletes.
Oh, yeah.
Um, those are some events you want to watch, and you see like such unique like the steeplechase and crap like that. You know what I mean? It's that that you would never see anywhere else,
No,
which
but
is
if you want my official opinion, I think the most impressive thing is the hurdles, like especially the 100-meter hurdles, because those things are tall. They're like more than half of my height. And to run that fast and jump over them and never hit them is friggin' impressive.
it is. It's really, really impressive. And then with like the decathlon, 10 events in one and all that stuff, and like the
There's so
triathlon is a
many.
part of. There's so many different
There
athlons I think that are a part of the Olympics, and it's just funny how like somewhere someone decided we're gonna take these 10 things and put them all together for one event.
and make some poor schmuck have to do them and do them at an elite level. But the games start tomorrow, so the opening ceremonies are tomorrow, and I'm going to watch them. I'm sure you're going to watch them. But before we move on from the Olympics, there are two, I don't want to say controversies, but two interesting things to talk about. So 3 years ago, I think surfing was a new event, and that's pretty cool. My brother-in-law Mike loves to surf, so he liked to watch it. But this time, it's in Tahiti, which I believe is like 10,000 miles from Paris, and I believe it's a French colony. So I think there is some sort of a
Yeah,
French connection there. Now they gave us some BS thing about, oh, we want to extend the Olympics, blah 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 blah. Basically, they don't have waves in Paris, so they needed to put the surfers somewhere so they could catch a damn wave. But I don't know. I guess it feels weird, but at the same time, like that you could do what you got to do.
yeah. I think that I see both sides. Like on one hand, I think as if you were going to the Olympics, you'd be like, man, I don't get to be around like everybody else in the Olympic Village and just all the excitement or to go watch other events after yours is over and stuff. You miss out on all of that. But on the other hand, you get to spend, a couple weeks in Tahiti. I mean, so that's probably not too bad.
Yes, and you talked about the Olympic Village. I think if you're going to be anywhere, that Tahiti's probably better because you don't have cardboard anti-sex beds.
Right? And I've seen some of these athletes like making videos about like the mattresses and like how like they're supposed to be like soft. There's like soft sections and hard sec, and they're like the soft is not soft at all. It's just crazy to me that they can't get these people better like accommodations at the Olympics.
Well, I guess from my perspective, why do they care if they have sex with each other? Like these are the top athletes in the world. They know, excuse me, they know what these things do to them. Like having sex before an event may drain them the next day. So they're all smart enough to know. And also, if they want to, who cares? Like I just don't understand. Like they've sort of backtracked and said that's not what it is. It's just we're using reusable materials and blah blah blah. But for years they've been talking about this. And I think even the last Olympics, it was the same thing. Why does it matter? Like, I don't understand the obsession with these people fraternizing with each other. It's the
No, I
Olympics,
mean,
the
let's come
Olympic
on.
Village.
Let's be honest. For the sake of our species, like these are the people we want procreating with
I
each other.
mean, from an
I mean,
athletic perspective,
right?
yes. Well, actually, and like if you think about like the swimmers, a lot of them are going to like Stanford. So they're not
Right.
unintelligent people.
Yeah, I mean, you're just going to make more highly successful athletes, and it's going to sustain a healthier species, man. In the long run, go for it. I'd encourage it.
It just doesn't, I mean, if you're thinking about the Olympics, it's once every 3 years. This is your moment to shine. But let's say that your event is at the beginning and you're done and you won a gold medal. Go out and celebrate with some hot person that you find attractive who maybe also is done. Like it's the only time in your life you're going to have an experience like this. And I agree with you though. It's like, well, this is also a discussion about what happens with an Olympics. Like so many cities get stuck with all this stuff. And then I mean, I'm sure you've seen pictures, articles. Like, I mean,
Like
Athens
the
was
ruins.
20 years ago and it's like a shell of itself. It never got used again. And in some countries, in some cities, they can actually repurpose things. Like France probably already had some of this stuff. They'll probably repurpose it. I mean, especially if you think about the Olympic Stadium, PSG, right? There's so many football teams that go through there. So like it'll get used, but not in every country. And it's fascinating how these things happen. But it's like the accommodations are always bad for the Olympians. Folks, the reason that the Olympics are there is the Olympians. So maybe give them a nice mattress to sleep on. Just a thought.